It's all about turning the spotlight around and looking at people and putting people into the spotlight that you wouldn't ordinarily put into the spotlight. And really, what does it mean to live a life of significance over chasing success?
Wow. Those are pretty powerful talks. Do those lead to business opportunities, or is that all those seem to be kind of in the personal individual growth and development space? And is that a line of your business and consulting, or just more of a personal interest?
Yeah, for me, I mean, speaking as a business, right? So those are all paid keynotes or lectures, and that's primarily there's several types of speakers. I have a course on this, by the way. But there's several types of speakers. Some are professional speakers solely for the sake of speaking, which is what I would say that line of business is for me. Some are speakers that will speak for free to fill up their hopper with leads. It's not a lead gen tool for me. I mean, sure, I sell books. I'll sell 50 or 100 books every single time I speak, and there's royalties that come with that. And that's a benefit, but I get paid to speak. And so that's really where the fulfillment is. And I mean, more than that, it's where people come up afterwards and you do have that mother that's, crying, or that, I had one business executive who, is a MD, MBA, a DDS, so two medical doctorate degrees and MBA, really interesting guy and, very, very well known too. He came up to me, not quite in tears, but almost there after one, and introduced himself, told me who he was. And he said, my total perspective on life has changed as a result of this. Fast forward, he had some, health complications, and he still points back to that one keynote that was Shadow in the Spotlight, and how some things that I talked about there have transformed his life. So that's what makes it worth it, right?
Yep. Let's go back to the Main Street business kind of thread. I have a couple ways I want to take that. One is how does someone else get into your shoes, right? I mean, you've accumulated a lot of business experience. Obviously you have a passion for, educating and sharing that knowledge. What else would someone need if they're like, hey, I want to do this and that's my goal? Do they need just a dump truck full of cash as well? How do they build relationships or get a pipeline, or where would they start if they're trying to become the next Ryan Bett?
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit earlier about titles and labeling people, but I think the biggest thing is, for me, if I look at my principles that I've designed in my life, it's integrity, excellence, and experience. And those three principles run throughout everything I do. And I think that just about anyone, I'm not saying I'm perfect by any stretch, got plenty of areas where I've had to learn, and not always the easy way, but I think that almost anyone that's come into contact with me would be able to say that those three things are true of me, and that my goal, my life purpose statement is to inspire others towards a positive change. And it has been even before I started 99% of the endeavors that I went into. And that's always been a goal. And so is someone, one of my employees, are they better off having worked with me than before? Or whatever that might be. And so I do feel that for anyone wanting to kind of go down the road of coaching, consulting, and speaking, someone that wants to start a Main Street business, I would just ask you why. Well, what is it that you want to accomplish from that? I've worked with, someone that was a chaplain and a pastor, or, a minister, and they didn't like standing behind a pulpit on Sunday mornings. They wanted to get out and be more with the people. And so they wanted to start a wine bar. And they said that was the biggest ministry opportunity that they've ever had. They've worked with more people doing that. So why, what was their why? Well, they just wanted to love people well. And they didn't feel that they were doing that from the organized sense of the word. And there's so many other examples of that, where people, if they figure out why they want to do something and then they go do it because of the impact that they're going to make, they're almost inevitably going to be successful. I think it's when you start chasing money specifically, and that's your goal, your end goal, that's your why, is where you get tripped up. And I think that's where I personally got a little bit disenfranchised with the venture-backed startups, the constant fundraising. And again, nothing wrong with those things. Did it for well over a decade, but just a change in perspective over time.
Yep. No, that's powerful. When you've got the brand Third, is that kind of your personal playground, or is that something that you want to be kind of a household name? Or tell me what your vision is. I mean, it's a nice brand. It's a great name. So it's obviously you've put some thought and some curation into it. What do you want to see from that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I noticed, particularly in mid 2021, was there was a sense of Main Street businesses, which really are the backbone of the American economy for the most part, and or at least that service level worker, right? Make up a large portion of the workforce in the United States. I just started hearing horror stories, and at this point, I had 2 coffee shops and wine bars that eventually grew to 5, and then shrunk back down a little bit, which is a whole other story. But what I found is that people weren't being treated fairly. People weren't being focused on first. And so the 2 spots that we had at the time, we always called them the third place. And I borrowed that from Howard Schultz of Starbucks, where, you've got your home, your work, and that third place where you just want to do life, where you want to get together with friends, where you have your first date, where you can have that difficult conversation, where you can, whatever it is, that intellectual conversation. That third place that you can just call your home outside of home. And that's what we've always fostered to create. But I think for a while it was always focused on the guest experience, which is still extremely important to me. But what I realized is if you focus on your team first, your team, out of the gratitude of your team's heart, it's going to overflow into the way they treat your guests and your partners. So third, to answer the question, is really just a holding company that has a couple Main Street businesses in it. A small co-working space, a video studio, candle company, and a couple coffee shops and wine bars or beer shops in there. And at this point, not looking to grow exponentially fast on any of our retail or I would say physical properties, but we have put together some really exciting programs and curriculum for online education for people either looking to get into Main Street businesses or looking to provide that extraordinary experience. So we've made both of those available, and that's really what Third exists, is to help other people create those third places in their community, whether that's a bookstore, a coffee shop, a wine bar, a community center, whatever it might be.
Sure. That's definitely a future collaboration opportunity, because I think that's, so we've moved into the co-working space as well when we all dispersed with COVID, and we're like, okay, we've got this great space. It's a, downtown. What's needed here? I mean, and it always just hurt my soul when it's like, oh, I'm going to turn this into something, and I have to spend $400,000 of upfit budget just so Microsoft can pay me rent. It's like, that's just stinks. And it's nice to have a good place to go. And I think the co-working industry has also borrowed the term third space as well. Sort of like someplace you can build, you got to get out of your house and you can have culture at work, but you can also build professional networks. It doesn't have to be tied to just your job. You can find your tribe or your location, and independent of just your specific coworkers. But with the message that kept coming back was, for just what we're kind of continuing to kind of refer to as Main Street businesses, just to have that. I mean, so many industry, so much was catered towards tech and kind of the venture backed world, and how many things can we sell to these well-funded people, and it's not their money. Yep. That we kind of just missed this whole category of people that still need kind of the business support and the someplace to go and someplace to test their idea, to learn and share with others and get kind of group experiences, not just sign this giant lease. And also, leases suck. I don't know how many leases you've been in where you had to, you wanted to get out and you just you're in there forever, really.
Yeah, you just suck it up.
So I feel like that industry, what are you doing in commercial real estate? I feel like doesn't that need to be changed as well?
Oh, if we could change commercial real estate. I have one personal commercial real estate investment. Most of my real estate investments are residential and single family homes for the most part. Anyway, commercial real estate, man, and I've seen this model a couple places, but it's not. I don't want to say that commercial landlords are greedy, but they are very persistent. It's definitely a business. It is, and it's a grueling business, and they know every shortcut to make sure that you pay every dollar, or they're going to get, insane amounts of interest. But I think if you could create a way in which you had these move-in ready spaces or partnered with these tenants that had these great ideas. Here's the problem with most Main Street businesses. first upfit of my first coffee shop in 2013, 14, somewhere in that range, $86,000. To do that same concept 5 years later, and there were a couple differences in the space, but not significantly. In a smaller space, $550,000. Radical difference.
Yes.
And then to open one in a space that was already mostly outfit with plumbing and electrical and everything in place already, it cost $150,000. So you're looking at, and obviously that number is lower than the last one, but it was almost in a move-in ready space. So you're looking at anyone trying to get into one of these spaces is putting out a ton of money, and most of that they're never going to see back. They're not profitable their first couple of years anyway. So if they write that off and try to push that into taxes later, like, sure, they get a little bit of a write-off, but it's not a huge deal immediately. So the other thing is it takes a long time for a business to take off. It can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months for a business to turn cash flow positive. And that's not even necessarily profitable if you're looking at what they invested. So these Main Street businesses have been slow growth with labor increasing. I mean, we've more than doubled what we've paid, what we've guaranteed our team. Now, thankfully, they've always been paid exceptionally well. And so even though we increased our guarantee, the average pay didn't really change all that much because we do pay well with tips and everything else. But that keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. Rent is through the roof right now in most of these commercial spaces that we're looking at. And a lot of the businesses that have come in through Third that we've coached will get halfway through their idea and stop because the real estate doesn't make sense or the initial investment doesn't make sense. So I don't have a solution for commercial real estate, and I don't like complaining about something I can't fix. But there's definitely opportunity to revamp it.
Yep. Yeah, that was, I guess, maybe also a shared opinion there, which is it's one of those, just like we talked earlier about venture or Wall Street, which, again, just to repeat, I'm not overly cynical. I don't mind that people are creating instruments and doing things, and they're using the tools they have, and they're in the system that we've provided. So it's so impersonal because someone has, raised some capital, they've got it going, they sold that capital, that's now bought by a REIT, and like that REIT is now funding this, brokerage, and they've got a $200 million legal budget to make sure that their document is way better than yours, and you'll never be able to get out of that thing, and no one owns it and no one cares. It's like you can't even reach somebody sometimes if you're like, need to engage with them. And that's tough. And it's kind of like a very, it's kind of just like a billionaire's game. But ultimately, owners of REITs are back to the mom and pop investors, in their retirement fund. So like, I hope it works out. And they've all just passed that on. They just continue to pass the buck to the next investor till they get the exit point. But fun times. Yeah, I mean, interesting. Okay, yeah. So there's opportunity for change there, and they need this. I mean, like we've talked about with spaces, and yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, how do we create more space for these Main Street businesses to incubate and avoid that, and by adding more of a personal investment and a commitment and thoughtfulness to the process, can we all, kind of win, which I think is great. Totally changing gears. So, you've tech kind of marketing or entrepreneur, then marketing firm, then tech and venture. And now you said you don't want to be, you're not going to be an entrepreneur anymore. You're an investor. I mean, tell me how the rest of the story ends. Like now and what your personal, I mean, obviously you got your personal brand, inspire others towards a positive change, or your personal mission statement, but are you just kind of like, I'm going to sail off into the sunset doing some of the consulting, some of the, variety? Like, tell me how that looks and why that's exciting to you.
Yeah. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So I'm definitely not an entrepreneur. Part of the double negative there. I'm always starting new things, and I've kept developers from one of my startups on payroll. So I'm always tinkering, right? When I say that I'm done with that world, I don't think I'm going to found something, go through the venture capital route again, go solicit money and just try to grow. I think one of the satisfaction points that I've seen, and I actually learned it from coaching Main Street businesses. I didn't teach it, which is always great. I find you learn more when you coach and consult and mentor. But what I've learned is that most of these Main Street business, and again, I don't mean that with a physical location, but someone that's running a virtual consulting firm from their home, and they're making, let's say, $500,000 gross and taking home, have a couple employees and taking home $150,000, $200,000. That's great by just about anyone's standards, and they're their own boss. It's low overhead, low risk. They've grown a business from the ground up, and they've got cash flow that they're trying to figure out how do they maximize that, either increase their cash flow or use it to grow their business and work less. And I have found so much satisfaction in freeing up more cash flow in these people's businesses, putting in processes and scalability factors in place so that they can, like I said, literally work less and be with their family, do the things that matter. It's not about being lazy, because most entrepreneurs are not lazy. Actually, I don't think no successful entrepreneur is lazy. But a lot of these individuals just want their life back. And so going back and making sure that they can earn the same or more with getting their life back and working half the time, it has been really, really satisfying.
That's great. All right. You've addressed this, but you're driven to inspire others towards a positive change. Has that always been like your source of power and forward movement? Or, were you ever driven by, anger is too strong of a word, but like, oh, this is broken, I want to fix it? Or tell me, has it always been so positive?
But the funny thing is, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a positive person. I like to say realist, but that could also be translated to pessimist a lot of the times. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily positive, but I do like helping other people have positive experiences. So I've always been motivated by that. If I can get a smile on someone's face, and not for the praise of others, but if I can make someone better than before, that's always been interesting to me. I like to make things better, even if it's little things better. So, I would say my earliest motivations were a PlayStation, to be totally honest. When I was selling lemonade, washing cars, trying to fix bikes and small, lawnmowers or whatever I could find to make a buck when I was real young, even a preteen, that was so I could buy a PlayStation. And I bought that PlayStation. And after I bought that PlayStation, I never played it because there was no satisfaction in it for me. And never ever really played video games since, but it took me forever to earn the money it was $199, which now is laughable, but $199 in the early 90s, that was a lot of money. And to a preteen, or I don't even know how old I was. So that was just a lesson to me. That was probably the only time I was motivated by something extremely selfish. And in every business, there is the desire to make money, right? I would be lying if I didn't say that I pursued some ideas over others solely based on money. But the ones where I've done only for money, and there's one particular example that I did only for money, totally backfired. Most miserable season of my professional career to date, and it wasn't worth it. And it ended up costing me more in a lot of other ways, and it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. 10 years from now, tell me who's Ryan Vett in 10 years?
Yeah, hopefully doing the same thing. I love what I'm doing. I love chatting with people, having conversations, the opportunity to speak and share my story, share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll keep writing occasionally as I have stuff worth writing, which is few and far between. And just having conversations with people, and hopefully creating an army of solopreneurs or small business owners that have freedom in their life, have work-life balance, love what they do. They're making an impact in their business. It's not a grind. And I think that's, I could do that till the day I die. I'd be pretty happy.
There you go. Well, you're a great asset for all, our community, but businesses and as a whole. So keep doing that great work. I'm excited to continue our new relationship from email to meeting to, even though you're right down the street, literally, I think.
I know.
But, and then we'll get together next week, which will be fun. So
sounds good.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Absolutely,
and
Nick.
Yeah, man, let's sign off and have a great rest of the day.
Cool. You too. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.
Bye.